Hello, I'm excited to bring you this new version of Strand Designer, version 1.253. Now in this version you'll notice that I've decided to make it windowed just to allow for a bit more compatibility and just in general I think it looks a little bit easier to access. Okay, so what you'll see when you start is the color version of the hair strands. Initially I started with the RGB mask, but it doesn't look as pretty as the color map. So the color map's now enabled by default. You can left click to disable it, and that just means that it won't generate it again, and it also means it won't try and export it. By default you'll always be exporting the RGB mask, and if the color map here is enabled and you've generated the colors, when you change the colors here they don't update right away in this version. I'm going to be working on that in a future version. But to get the new colors you'll have to click generate again, and you'll see that it generates the hairs again with the new tones. To turn off any randomization of the movement of the hairs, just click on this one to turn the randomization off. When you generate it will keep the same form. That means you can go ahead and change colors and other settings to fine tune it. Go ahead and change the tapering here and change some waviness. Okay, let's bring the tones back up to something that is easier to see. I've also added these sliders here to fine tune the hair tones. Just in case you're having any issues picking the color that you want, then you can just adjust these. Okay, so I'll go ahead and generate again, and it'll keep the same shape, but now it's got the new tones. The root tone is controlled through this root scale, so you can go a little bit further with it by bringing this up. Same for the tip scale, so I'm just going to generate those again. If you press F1 you can see the seed value for any randomization, so you can take note of that if you like the way these look. Just in this version it's just this kind of haphazard dialog box, but in a future version I'm going to add some kind of text box here, and also the ability to save like a project file which will save all the settings and things. So I'm going to be working on that soon. A new feature that I've added and was requested by someone who bought this through Artstation was that they wanted to control the length of the hairs, or more specifically the strand count for each set. So I've enabled that here. Now each of these sets corresponds to each of these. It's not labelled precisely, but you'll get the idea when you start to put in numbers. So the absolute length distance acts as an override if greater than 0. So for example this one, now the default length is 3500 pixels before it reaches the end. I think there's like a 200 pixel variation gap kind of happens here as well, and plus it's affected by this variation amount. So if you bring that up then you'll see that it will create different lengths for you. But let's bring that down for the purpose of this example. So I'm going to increase the decrease the distance, the lengths here. So if 3500 is the max, now the max is actually 3800. So if you go above 3800 it will just cap itself there. So change that to 3800. I'm not going to press enter yet because that will generate. So I'm just going to click on these, put in my values. Let's do 3000 here, 2500, 2200, that's 2000 even, 1500, 1200, 800, and I'm just going to leave that at 0 to show you that it keeps the length. So when I press generate or enter, then you can see I've now been able to define these lengths. I'm just going to adjust the tapering back a little bit. I'm at the very edge of the texture here, so I might want to bring that back a bit. I'm just going to make it 2700. Now when you change these numbers it will change the algorithm a little bit because it's going through a different number of strands and things like that, so it's a little bit hard to escape any changes. I'm just going to go ahead and change the variation up to 10 to see if I get something closer to what I had. So variation, what it does is it changes the length of each hair, but also kind of randomizes things a little bit more. Okay, you can think of this variation as a kind of localized random, and this strand randomization is more of a kind of global random. It's quite hard to get back to this. The only way to find out what that is by pressing F1 and getting the seed value. Okay, so you'd have to generate with it on, and then press F1, you'll get the seed value, and you can take note of that if you want it back. So that's what you can do there. You can also change the number of strands. So you've got set zeros, 8 strands, 7, 6, 5, and that's determined by this, right? You start with 8 strands, and each set loses 1, the reduction of 1. So you can override that if you put a value in here more than 0. So I could do, like, let's give me 20 here. I'll have 5 with this one, 18, 4, 15, and I'll have a 3, a 2, and a 1. And there you go, it's giving me 25, 18, 4, 5, 15, 3, 2, and 1. And you can see that that works out quite nicely. Again, I can change the lengths of these, so I'm going to just reset that back to 0. And that will give me the full length for this one. Okay, so now with that in place, I can go ahead and change the tones up again. So I'll choose this one, do some like nice browns. I'm just gonna soften those tones a bit, darken this one. The root I'll make quite dark, and the tip, yeah, a little bit lighter. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and generate. I've got randomization on. I'm going to switch that off so that it keeps the form here. And there we go, I've managed to color the hairs. I want to generate the mask map, normal map, ID, and depth. So I'll just click generate for those. It'll take a little bit longer now that it's got to generate the rest of them, but that's it, done it. So I can right click to see each map. It looks pretty good, so I'll go ahead and export. Now I've renamed the RGB mask back to RGB mask because it used to be called something funky like VRT, which stood for variation root tip, but I think RGB mask helps just to keep the file names kind of consistent with, you know, what you'd expect. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here that I've added, and not really, so let me just export those to show you how they look. So I'm just going to do desktop. I think I've got a temp folder here. I'll just add a new folder, call it temp as well. So you can see this first mask is the RGB mask, which holds the variation in the red channel, the root in the green channel, and the tip in the blue channel. And we've already colorized those to get a start on things. So RGB mask demo, and it does that for each. So I'm just going to write the word demo and copy it. ID demo. Color map demo, mask demo, and I'll ask for depth. Okay, so that's the way it exports things. It doesn't batch export because that kind of breaks the filing system that I use to create this, and it's just unfortunate it just doesn't batch them out. Maybe one day, but for now that's pretty much what I've updated here. So you've got the override controls. If you don't want those, just turn them back to 0. So you can just like backspace those. I might include like a right click to reset, that might be quite nice, so I'll work on that one. So as soon as you put them back to their original and generate, it's going to use this, the 8 reduced, 8, 7, 6, 5, 5, so you can go ahead and change that back up if you wanted. Okay, so that's version 1.253. Literally just worked on this all day, and it was an extra few features I wanted to get put in there before the weekend. So I hope you like using this, and if you want to request any more features, I will be working on some ways of like bending these, but that might take a bit of time to create like some kind of spline curve that these can follow. I will work on it at some point, but it will be a few months in development. Thanks for watching. Bye.